What's up, guys? Toad, Sunday morning, back with you again. Finally had a losing day after it looked like it was going to be potentially a sweep of the college football board early on. Two in one day, I think it was yesterday. I started out two blowout wins. I ranted about it last night on the NFL show as well. So thanks for people who joined that show last night. Go watch that before the game start. Although the NFL London game, I don't even think I have it on right now, but who wants to watch that? The NFL London game has already started, and it's a close, low-scoring, ugly game, so whatever. But yeah, I started out 2-0 yesterday, two blowout wins, Iowa and Miami, Ohio, and I'm like, I'm looking good, man. And then you got NC State was losing by 3, so they were right there within that spread at the moment. They're pushing, and then UCLA playing a really low-scoring game. It was looking like I could potentially hit all four of them, at the very least go 3-1. Nope. NC State loses by 7, so they missed by 4.5 points, and then UCLA winds up pushing, giving up a touchdown right at the end of the game in a very low-scoring game. Just horrendous. And then, so I think my college football handicapping was spot on, though. It's just, that's the way those games fell. And then of course, the hockey game was just totally brutal. I don't know what else to say about that. Oilers, they won the shot battle. They outpossessed Chicago by a ton, like 60-something% to 30-something%. As somebody, I think Nate mentioned last night, Skinner was not in net for the Oilers last night, but I don't even think that should have mattered as far as that handicap was concerned. That was just the scheduling spot. That was just how it fell. Let's talk about today. I am going to make a play in this NLDS game. I think or NLCS. I mistitled this show here. It's the NLCS, not the ALCS. But let's get into it here. It's the ALCS, man. My apologies. So here we got NLCS, Mets, Dodgers. This starts today. I am going to make a play on this one on the Dodgers. It's going to be a split play, -1.5 on the run line, plus 136. And the other half of the bet, -160 money line. So you're basically making your own -1 run line on this if you do it this way. This is the way that I prefer to do it. And then if they win by 1 exactly, you actually still win like a slight amount on it. So I'm going with the Dodgers in this one. I think there are a few advantages to this, although a lot of it is with the starting pitching matchup here. The Dodgers, they're down from -155 to -150, although I saw it looking like it was going back up this morning. 67% of the tickets, because, of course, the Dodgers are going to be public. 96% of the cash, though, so they are getting a lot of the cash here. Total was 8 juice to the over at -120. Now it's 8 juice to the over, -115, with 81% of the tickets and 93% of the cash on the over. So it's kind of conflicting indicators on the total there, but I'm not going to do anything with this total. I think this is about the starting pitching matchup, man, and about the Mets, I think, having maybe too much time off, as the Mets have had extra time off as they last played against the Philadelphia Phillies on October 9th. So they've had 3 days off now, which does give them time to get out to the Pacific Coast. But still, I think the fact that they're having to travel out to the Pacific Coast now, and this could like disrupt their momentum a little bit, I think does not really help the Mets. And the Dodgers are just like playing through on kind of regular rest. The Dodgers have had 1 day off, even though, yes, they did just beat their rival, the Padres, in that NLDS game there. So, yes, they are coming off of a big series win. So, does that mean there's going to be a letdown here? I don't really think so, because I don't think you're really going to suffer a letdown when this is the NLCS here. So, I think the Dodgers are in a better spot here just because they're staying in the Pacific time zone, and they're playing basically a normal rest here. As far as the starting pitching matchup is concerned, you got basically a complete unknown in Senga pitching for the Mets, and he's a guy who he's pitched 1 season in his major league career last year. Mets did not make the playoffs, and this year he only made 1 start during the regular season. So I don't know that this guy is necessarily ready to be thrown into a high pressure situation like this. He did pitch once in the playoffs this year so far against Philadelphia. He went 2 innings. He gave up 1 run on a solo homer, 3-1 strikeout walk ratio. So, I mean, it was an okay start, but I don't know what we can even figure out based on what we see out of him this year. And his one start in the regular season, the Mets did win both of these games, but he went 5 1/3. 9-1 strikeout walk ratio was good. 1 home run allowed again, and 2 earned runs allowed, 2 hits. It's really tough to figure out like what you're going to get out of this guy, but he's facing a pretty good Dodgers offense here. The Dodgers have the better offense, and I think the bullpens are kind of debatable which one of them is better, but I'm going to give the Dodgers the edge in the starting pitching matchup. As Senga, he hasn't done very well against the Dodgers, really. A 5-4 strikeout walk ratio, only a 21 at-bat sample size, but they've hit 286 off him with a 971 OPS. So he does not have particularly good numbers against the Dodgers. They're able to hit him. And then on the other side of this, Jack Flaherty, who Mr. Pride here, Jack Flaherty. I'm not a fan of Jack Flaherty. Obviously not a fan of his politics, but I think he might be in a bounce-back spot. He wasn't pitching that well down the stretch, but okay enough with a 27-12 strikeout walk ratio in the month of September. And then he didn't do very well against the Padres. He faced the Padres twice in a row, though. This was a game that I handicapped, and I got right on the Padres, where because he was facing the Padres the second straight time, the Padres had good numbers off of him. I thought he was going to struggle, and he did. But now we're in a situation where Jack Flaherty, even though he's the younger guy, he actually has more, I believe he has more postseason experience than Senga, although it's not by a whole lot. But he did have a more complete start in the postseason this year as well. I think because the Dodgers' playoff rotation is so damaged or so injury-plagued, I guess I should say, with they're missing Clayton Kershaw, Tyler Glasnow. It's not good, man. So those guys are all gone. I think they're going to want to try to save their bullpen a little bit here by letting Flaherty go. And he has pretty good numbers against the Mets in his career. 20-5 strikeout walk ratio, 65 at bat sample size. He has allowed 3 home runs. 2 of them were to the insufferable Jesse Winker, who really just pisses me off all the time. He's held the Mets hitters to a 231 average and 716 OPS. So in the specific matchup stats here, Flaherty has the better numbers. I think he's the more proven pitcher at this point because he did at least pitch the full season with a 3.17 ERA and 1.07 whip. So I think he's in a bounce-back spot, and he has that one start under his belt now. Whereas I know Senga did also pitch in the postseason already, but he only made 2-inning performance there. And you might see the Mets actually take Senga out and go to the bullpen again in this one. And then I think you're going to get into kind of an unknown situation there again. So I'm going to back Flaherty here, back the Dodgers here. That's going to be my play in the baseball game. My baseball postseason, I think, has been iffy. I think I don't know what I am at this point, 4-5, maybe something in that ballpark. Ballpark. But that's what I'm going to do. The LA Dodgers, -1.5 on the run line, +136, and the other half of the bet, split half and half, -160 on the money line. I feel really out of it, man, because I just woke up. I pounded some coffee and came up to do this. And then we'll look at the NHL real quick. We only have 4 games on the NHL slate here, and it's not something that I really am going to want to deal with here. I probably would lean against Seattle and Minnesota just because they both played in a pretty heated overtime game last night where Seattle won at Minnesota, I believe, last night to take that game in overtime. And so that means both teams are having to travel. Minnesota's only going out to Winnipeg, but it looks like Winnipeg does have a big cash discrepancy on with 88% of the cash, 65% of tickets on the other side of Minnesota. So for some reason, the public looks like they like Minnesota here. I don't know about that. Let me just make sure I got that game yesterday right. It was at Minnesota. Yes, it was. So that's a situation where, Winnipeg, I mean, they were where were they at yesterday? What did I just say? I forget what I even just said. Where was Winnipeg at yesterday? They didn't play yesterday. That's right. Seattle was in Minnesota, so they're going from Minnesota to Dallas, and Minnesota's going from Minnesota to Winnipeg. So not huge travel there, but because that was like a pretty contested overtime game last night, I'm going to give Winnipeg a little bit of the edge here because they had yesterday off. And also I would say the same with Seattle as Dallas had yesterday off, but it looks like the public is on Dallas, and the market is actually indicating against Dallas. Dallas, Edmonton, and Vegas are all heavy favorites here too, so not really anything I want to get involved in, even though I know I played Edmonton as a heavy favorite last night, but I don't really see an angle here for these games. Dallas, 82% of the tickets and only 57% of the cash, although they're up from minus 190 to minus 197. But Seattle, I don't think Seattle's going to necessarily overlook Dallas. It's more of like what the rest situation for Seattle is going to be like after they played that pretty contested overtime game last night. And then Edmonton also played last night, but they played horrendously. So are they going to be in kind of a bounce back spot here? I mean, I don't know, potentially. Calgary also played last night. As I mentioned, I liked the over in that game. I should be playing NHL totals, man. Both games I said I liked the over. They both came through. Calgary, Philadelphia were both coming off of, I believe, games in which they beat Vancouver. So Calgary and Edmonton are both also on back-to-backs here, so no real actual edge there as far as the rest is concerned. Calgary played that really high-scoring game yesterday, beating Philadelphia, but I don't think they're going to care that much about beating Philadelphia. Edmonton, after just such an ugly performance in their first two games, they got to finally bounce back, you would think, but the public is also on them, and the market is against Edmonton as well, down from minus 270 to minus 255, 73% of the tickets and only 69% of the cash. So the market indicators look like they're not liking Edmonton to bounce back in this one. So I don't know how I feel about that one either. So yeah, again, I'm just staying off of this. And then Anaheim, Vegas, I mean, you got to think that's just kind of a mismatch. Anaheim did win last night at San Jose, but San Jose, not very good. So Anaheim is on the back-to-back, and I think Vegas was off last night. So Vegas does have extra rest, and it looks like they do have the cash percentage, 95% with 81% of tickets on them, but very high price tag on them, minus 300, but down to minus 290. I don't know what I think about this NHL card, man, but that's going to be a pass for me on the NHL. And then as far as NFL is concerned, the Bears scored a touchdown, so they are now winning. The market actually shifted again in this game. This was such a hard game to handicap, dude. I mentioned I liked the Jaguars. That is who I picked in my pools, but it looks like even though the Jaguars flipped the favorite, the cash percentage came back this morning on the Bears. I don't know. I liked the Jags just because they're the more experienced team playing in London. And I just kind of liked the fact they had the better quarterback, and the market read last night looked like it was on the Jags, but man, that was a tough game to pick. As far as the NFL, my plays in the NFL, once again, are New England plus 7, although it looks like you're not going to get the 7. Probably have to play the 6.5. Well, maybe. You can see still 6.5 with juice, so I guess it is possible. It hits 7 again this afternoon, but I'm not really banking on it, so you might have to play 6.5 there, but I do like the side. You can go see my analysis on my NFL video. I got Carolina plus 6.5, which that one I think has gone down to 6. Probably not going to get the 7 on that one, so probably just have to play it at 6 or 6.5. And the Jets plus 2.5, but that's Monday night, tomorrow night. It is down to 2 now, but I think it is possible that you do get potentially maybe a 3 still on that, although it's looking less likely. And then I was going to just talk about a couple other games real quick here that I didn't mention yesterday. The Buccaneers and the Saints. The reason why the Bucs have flipped from a 3-point underdog here, although really it was a 2.5 underdog more so, up to a 3.5-point favorite, is because Derek Carr got injured right towards the end of the Saints game last week. So he is out. And who was that game against? I don't even actually remember. Let me look real quick here. Let's see, NFL schedule here. New Orleans, what are we looking at here? So Derek Carr, I believe, got injured at the end of the Kansas City game, I guess it must have been last week, or was it the Atlanta game? I don't even know. Was he playing through an injury last week? I don't know, but either way, this is because Derek Carr is injured, so the line has moved like basically 5.5 points, close to 6 points, because Carr is injured, and the Saints' backup is Spencer Rattler, the guy who, he looks like a bleached Patrick Mahomes, basically. He looks like a half-white Mahomes. Or is Mahomes half-white? Maybe he is. So he looks like a half-white, a quarter-white Mahomes. Spencer Rattler, former South Carolina quarterback. He is going for the Saints here, and it's going to be his NFL debut, I'm pretty sure, in this game. So Saints, not really a team I want to play on with a guy who's making his NFL debut, even though I know I am playing the Patriots in Drake May's debut. I think there are a lot of factors that just go against the Texans in that one. The market does look to be indicating on the Saints, maybe some bettors thinking that this is an overreaction to Derek Carr being out, and maybe it is. I think you just don't know what you're going to get out of Rattler. I don't know if I trust him really, but 74% of the tickets and only 70% of the cash on the Tampa Bay Bucks. And I don't know how much the hurricane is going to be lingering, like a lingering distraction for the Bucks. I believe the Bucks have not been at home since then, so I don't know like if they were practicing somewhere else during the hurricane, because the Bucks played last Thursday, I believe. That was the Thursday night game. They lost at Atlanta. And then I don't know if they came back to Tampa to practice. I think maybe they did, and then they got out of there before the hurricane started again and were able to practice somewhere else, I think is what they did. And then they're headed out to New Orleans, obviously. So maybe they're not going to be really totally impacted by the hurricane situation there. I don't know, but they did also, that was quite a barn burner of a game that they lost, man, that Tampa lost there on Thursday. So I don't know, but they do have extra rest because they played on Thursday. And the Saints, I believe, are on short rest because they played on Monday against Kansas City, but they lost that game fairly decisively. But they did have to go out to Kansas City, and now they're having to travel back. Very tough game to handicap here, man. But I just was going to point out that that's why the line is where it is. It's because Spencer Rattler is the starter for the Saints in this game. And then one thing I think I didn't talk about Steelers-Raiders at all, did I? I talked about the Raiders because I mentioned that the Broncos' win over them was misleading, which it was because the Raiders were about to basically make it a 17-3 game. They threw a 100-yard pick six in that game. They outgained the Broncos in that game. So I mentioned I like the Chargers. I still do like the Chargers there, even though the cash percentage is slightly on Denver for whatever reason. Steelers are just massively, massively public here, and I think I probably would fade the Steelers in this one if I was going to play this game. They're up for -2.5 with juice to 3 with juice, but massively public with 87% of the tickets and 90% of the cash on them. This is in the 4 p.m. Eastern slate. The Steelers played Sunday night, so they have a little bit less rest. That was a tough game for them, man, where they probably should have won the game against Dallas. A step-up game. They lost right at the end, and now they have to go out to Vegas and play the Raiders. Doesn't look like the best spot for the Steelers there, in my opinion. And I don't know who the Steelers have up next either. I don't know if this is almost looking a bit sandwichy. Was this a game I should have had my eye on more than I did? I don't know. Is it a sandwich? I wouldn't say really. They're playing the Jets next, although this is a primetime game against the Jets. This is a Sunday. They're playing another Sunday night game, I guess, next week. Yeah, against the Jets. So it is sandwiched between two primetime games at the very least. So I do like the Raiders. The Raiders looked worse than they actually were in that game against Denver. You're fading the public, at least by taking the Raiders. So it looks like it's going to be an ugly, low-scoring game with the total down to 36.5, although more of the tickets on the over at 82% and 56% of the, or 82% of the cash and 56% of the tickets, I mean. The other thing that I will point out in this game, why I mention it, because I'm mentioning these quarterback situations here. The Raiders, in that game, I believe after that pick six happened, I believe that was thrown by Minshew, but I'm not 100% sure about that. They took Minshew out of the game, I'm pretty sure. I don't even think he's injured. I think they just took him out and replaced him with Aiden O'Connell. And I'm not sure that's a great move for the Raiders, though, to be honest. Minshew, I mean, he hasn't been that bad in his NFL career. He's a more experienced QB. He's had some pretty decent seasons, especially, I think, with the Jaguars. And he played with the Eagles at some points as well. I like Minshew, man. I just like, I like the stash. I mean, who doesn't like that guy? A man's man, Gardner Minshew. Aiden O'Connell, I don't know what you're going to get out of him, man. I do think he's a little bit of a question mark there, even though I know he has played a few NFL games now. He does have some games under his belt, but when he's played, he hasn't looked very good, and he's been very mistake-prone. And you're going to throw him in there against a pretty good Steelers defense, so I don't know about that aspect of it, but it does look like the situation is worse for the Steelers. That's going to do it for me, man. Thanks for hanging out in the chat. Scott, what's up, brother? Dodger pussy again. Yeah, skip it. Will, what's up, man? I'll look forward to all your all the notifications coming from you spamming at me. That's going to do it for me, man. Thanks for hanging out for a bit of a short Sunday morning video. My plays, once again, are the New England Patriots at +7, Carolina Panthers +6.5, New York Jets Monday night +2.5, and the LA Dodgers -1.5 on the run line at +136 and -160 money line. Half and half split bet on that. Let's have a good day. Let's get back on the winning side after a small loss yesterday. Well, not totally small. It was because I paid more for that Edmonton price there. It was a little bit more than a small loss. Not great yesterday, but let's get back to it. Let's go. Peace out, guys. Have a good Sunday. All right. Peace. Follow